cheapest Boeuf Bourguignon in Paris was the worst. The second cheapest, even if it was better, wasn't great either. So does paying more guarantee a better dish? Over the past 2 weeks, I tasted 6 different versions of this iconic French specialty. Some were disappointing, some were excellent, and one was so outstanding that it may be the best Boeuf Bourguignon I've had in years. In this video, I'll rank all 6 from worst to best, so you know exactly where to go in Paris for a great Boeuf Bourguignon. Boeuf Bourguignon. Now, this is French comfort food at its very best. In fact, according to an Ipsos International survey conducted in 23 countries among more than 21,000 lovers of French cuisine, Boeuf Bourguignon was ranked as the #1 dish that best represents France around the world. This rich and hearty beef stew comes from the Burgundy region of France, where it was originally created as a way to transform tougher cuts of meat into something wonderfully tender and flavorful. The beef is slowly braised for several hours in red wine, together with carrots, onions, garlic, and a bouquet garni of fresh herbs. Mushroom and bacon are then added to bring even more depth and richness to the sauce. The result is a dish that is both rustic and refined, with meat so tender that it practically melts in your mouth. Boeuf Bourguignon is usually served with mashed potatoes, pasta, or simply fresh bread to soak up every last drop of that extraordinary sauce. And if you'd like to enjoy it the French way, try adding a little whole grain Dijon mustard on the side. The slight kick of mustard pairs beautifully with the deep wine-based flavors of this iconic dish. These are the 6 restaurants competing in today's challenge. I'll review them in alphabetical order to keep the comparison as objective as possible. After each tasting, I'll place the restaurant into one of 5 categories: did not qualify, bronze, silver, gold, or platinum. And by the end of the video, you'll know exactly which restaurant serves the most memorable Boeuf Bourguignon in Paris. Our first restaurant is not only the first in alphabetical order, it also happens to be by far the cheapest of the 6. Bouillon Chartier Montparnasse is the left bank branch of the most famous Bouillon company in Paris. Founded in 1896, Bouillon Chartier has become a true Paris institution, known for serving traditional French dishes at remarkably affordable prices, in a lively Belle Époque setting. They have only one simple motto: a proper meal at a modest price. As a matter of fact, at just 10 euros, their Boeuf Bourguignon is less than 1/3 the price of the most expensive dish in this comparison. So the big question is simple: can such a low price still deliver an authentic and satisfying Boeuf Bourguignon? Here comes my Boeuf Bourguignon. At Bouillon Chartier Montparnasse, the recipe for this classic dish includes beef, carrots, red wine, butter, and coquillettes, those tiny macaroni-shaped pasta so beloved in France. As the waiter told me, the beef is slow-cooked for at least 3 hours, which should make it wonderfully tender and allow all the flavors to develop fully. In a truly great Boeuf Bourguignon, the meat should be so tender that you barely need a knife at all. Your fork alone should be enough to pull it apart in small pieces. Unfortunately, that was not the case at all here. I had to press quite hard with my knife just to cut through the meat, which is never a good sign for a dish that is supposed to be slow cooked for hours. And once in my mouth, although the flavor itself was perfectly acceptable, the beef was much too dry and required far too much chewing. That is exactly what a good Boeuf Bourguignon should avoid. The coquillettes, for their part, were completely bland and brought very little to the dish. Fortunately, the sauce was quite good, with a pleasant, well-balanced flavor that helped make the dish more enjoyable than the meat alone would have suggested. But as a well-brought-up boy, I still finished the entire dish, and even mopped up every last drop of that very good sauce. Anyway, although I can certainly recommend Bouillon Chartier Montparnasse for a decent traditional meal at a very affordable price, I simply cannot recommend its Boeuf Bourguignon. The dish was just not good enough. The meat was too dry and not tender enough, the coquillettes were bland, and only the sauce managed to save the experience. So for Bouillon Chartier Montparnasse, the verdict is clear: did not qualify. Just 100 meters from the Sacré-Cœur Basilica, at the top of the Montmartre hill, Le Cabanon de la Butte is exactly the kind of bistro I love. Good food, gentle service, and a superb view over Paris. But will its Boeuf Bourguignon live up to the restaurant's excellent reputation? All the great bistro classics are on the menu, and even though Le Cabanon de la Butte is located just a short walk from the Sacré-Cœur, this is definitely not a tourist trap with inflated prices. The Boeuf Bourguignon here is the second least expensive in this comparison, priced at a very reasonable €21. The restaurant has a very typical Parisian bistro layout, and when there isn't a building renovation project blocking the view, the panorama over eastern Paris is absolutely delightful. Here comes my Boeuf Bourguignon. At Le Cabanon de la Butte, the dish is prepared with paleron, a cut of beef known in English as chuck. According to the chef, whom I discussed with, the meat has been slowly simmered for a full 24 hours, which should result in exceptionally tender beef and a deeply concentrated sauce. If you were born and raised in France, there is simply no way you can resist making a little volcano in your mashed potatoes and filling it with that delicious sauce. As you can see, I simply can't pull this piece of beef apart just by pressing it with my knife. The reason is that, unfortunately, 2 of the 3 large chunks of beef contain too much connective tissue. The meat itself had a very good flavor, but those sinews made it a little too chewy. On the positive side, the vegetables were excellent, the pieces of bacon added plenty of flavor, and the sauce was absolutely superb, especially poured over the mashed potatoes. So, do I recommend Le Cabanon de la Butte's Boeuf Bourguignon? Yes, I do. The dish is full of flavor, the vegetables and bacon are excellent, and the sauce is truly outstanding. And if you happen to receive more tender cuts of beef than I did, you may well enjoy it even more than I did. But because 2 of my 3 pieces contain too much connective tissue, making the meat a bit too chewy, I can award this one only a bronze medal. Café des Musées is a quintessential Parisian bistro located in the heart of Le Marais. Founded in 1924, it is renowned for its traditional homemade cuisine prepared with fresh ingredients, sourced from carefully selected artisans. The restaurant is particularly famous for its Boeuf Bourguignon, which was voted best in Paris by Le Figaro several years ago, a distinction that the restaurant still proudly highlights on its menu today. So, is it still the best in Paris today? Well, that is exactly what we are about to find out. Instead of being served in several small pieces, the beef is presented here as one large chunk, a clear sign that the chef seems very confident in the tenderness of his meat. And of course, let's not forget the little volcano in the mashed potatoes, ready to be filled with that delicious sauce. As soon as I place my knife on the meat, it sinks effortlessly into it, and the beef falls apart into pieces with almost no resistance. This is tenderness in its purest form. In this recipe, everything is spot on. Beautifully tender, melt-in-your-mouth beef, excellent vegetables, flavorful pieces of bacon, and a superb mashed potato puree ready to welcome what is, so far, the best sauce of the entire comparison. So, is this really the best Boeuf Bourguignon in Paris? Well, we still have 3 more restaurants to visit, so it's too early to say for certain. But one thing is already clear: with such a masterpiece, Café des Musées earns an immediate place in the Platinum category for exceptional achievement. Chez Fernand Christine is our next stop. Chez Fernand is the name of the restaurant, and Christine refers to Rue Christine, where it is located in the heart of the Saint-Germain-des-Prés neighborhood. The owners also operate a sister restaurant on Rue Guizard, still in Saint-Germain-des-Prés, but on the other side of the boulevard. It was pouring rain when I arrived and still pouring when I left, so unfortunately I was unable to film the exterior of Chez Fernand Christine. But here it is on the restaurant's business card. As soon as you step inside, you are greeted by exactly the kind of decor one hopes to find in a traditional Parisian bistro: classic, cozy, and full of charm. The second thing you notice immediately is the warm and genuinely welcoming service provided by the staff. At €46.50, this Boeuf Bourguignon was the most expensive dish in this entire comparison. Here, the waiter serves the dish directly from the steaming hot poêlon, the traditional small cooking pot, straight onto your plate. According to the restaurant, the beef is first marinated in red wine for 3 days and then slow cooked for 5 hours. And they have a secret ingredient. Along with the Burgundy wine, they add a small amount of crème de cassis, blackcurrant cream, about 1/10 of the total volume, to deepen the color and give the sauce a slightly richer texture. As you can see, there are no mashed potatoes here, but instead a generous serving of excellent baby new potatoes from the west coast of France. And the beef itself is different from the other Boeuf Bourguignon we've had yet. For once, this is not chuck, but beef cheek, more precisely Angus beef cheek. And it's absolutely extraordinary, incredibly tender, and quite literally melt in your mouth. I also asked for some whole grain Dijon mustard, my own guilty pleasure with Boeuf Bourguignon, and they were more than happy to bring me some. And of course, when the sauce is this good, you know exactly what happens next. Yes, I simply have to mop up every last drop with a piece of fresh bread. I love this Boeuf Bourguignon every bit as much as the one at Café des Musées. On the plus side, I actually prefer the atmosphere here at Chez Fernand Christine, with its warm and intimate Saint-Germain ambiance. And the service was just perfect. On the other hand, this dish is about 25% more expensive. So in the end, I'm going to place these two restaurants on exactly the same level, platinum. Both serve truly exceptional Boeuf Bourguignon, and your final choice may simply come down to which neighborhood you prefer, Le Marais or Saint-Germain-des-Prés. Ah, au Vieux Comptoir. Quite simply, this is my favorite bistro in all of Paris. On the day I filmed there, every single aspect of the meal was absolutely perfect. But in this video, we are here to compare one thing and one thing only, the Boeuf Bourguignon. So let's focus on that. Awarded the Boeuf Bourguignon label by the Observatoire du Patrimoine Gourmand, the Boeuf Bourguignon costs 28 euros here. Just as at Chez Fernand Christine, the dish is served tableside by the owner of the bistro herself. And just like at Chez Fernand Christine, it is served with baby potatoes rather than mashed potatoes. So sadly, no little mashed potato volcano filled with sauce for me here. But in exchange, I was proposed a generous pot of my favorite whole grain Dijon mustard. The dish was undeniably excellent, and I enjoyed it tremendously. But when I compare it directly with the two platinum winners, the sauce was slightly less thick and concentrated, and the meat, while absolutely delicious, was just a little less tender. So even though Vieux Comptoir remains my personal favorite bistro in Paris, its Boeuf Bourguignon earns only a gold award in this challenge. Here's a restaurant located in a neighborhood that most visitors to Paris never get to discover. We are in the 15th arrondissement, just south of the Eiffel Tower. Le Volant Basque, as its name suggests, is a Basque restaurant serving specialties from the French part of the Basque country. But it's also well known for its Boeuf Bourguignon, which, like the one at Vieux Comptoir, has been awarded the Bon Boeuf Bourguignon label by the Observatoire du Patrimoine Gourmand. Here, the Boeuf Bourguignon is priced at just 23 euros. Served in its own little cooking pot, what immediately sets this Boeuf Bourguignon apart are the large strips of thinly sliced grilled bacon, which add a wonderful depth of flavor to the dish. Another distinctive feature is the trio of accompaniments: creamy mashed potatoes, Spanish rice, and polenta. It is an unusual and very welcome change from the more traditional single-side dish. Here, the meat itself is very good, although it is just a little less tender than the very best examples in this comparison. But everything that surrounds it is absolutely outstanding. The rich and flavorful sauce, the delicious grilled bacon, and the excellent trio of accompaniments. Together, they create a truly memorable and thoroughly satisfying dish. With slightly more tender meat, this could easily have earned a place in the platinum category. But even as it stands, the Volant Basque delivers an outstanding Boeuf Bourguignon, so I'm delighted to award it a gold medal. That places it alongside Vieux Comptoir, with both restaurants proudly bearing the Boeuf Bourguignon label and sharing the same step on the podium. So that is my ranking of these 6 Boeuf Bourguignons, another ranking of the restaurants themselves. In fact, with the exception of the Boeuf Bourguignon at Bouillon Chartier Montparnasse, I would happily recommend every single one of these restaurants. Of course, the 2 restaurants on the top step of the podium, Café des Musées and Chez Fernand Christine, serve what I consider to be the very best Boeuf Bourguignon in this comparison, even if they are also among the more expensive options. But what do you think? Have you tried any of these restaurants? If so, did you agree with my ranking? And if you know another Parisian restaurant that serves an outstanding Boeuf Bourguignon, please share your recommendation in the comments section. As always, I read and reply to every single comment, and I would love to hear your thoughts.